Welcome back to a podcast to be named later. We have a lot to get to, including scathing criticism of the Phillies' lackluster first 5 weeks, in which no one will be spared. We'll talk about our biggest surprises and disappointments so far into the season. We'll look at the balance of the May calendar. We'll do Brian's bitching. Jill has a brand new striking out story, Ask Abigail, and we'll address your comments and questions on the YouTube page. Brian Farrell, I want to work backwards a bit. We're 5 weeks in. There are already 8 games back. You have no closer. In fact, you have a $10 million a year closer in Craig Kimbrell, who is unpitchable right now. The middle relief is middling. The starters are still inconsistent. And aside from a couple games, you have a lineup that produces on average 3 to 4 runs a night. And you just yesterday broke the longest losing streak in 4 years. I know it's the first week of May, but how concerned are you?
I mean, after all those things you just listed, it's hard not to be concerned. I mean, let's take a step back. It is May 8th. We got plenty of time. It's a long season, especially with the expanded playoffs. I mean, the Phillies got in last year. They were in a bigger hole than they are right now. But with that being said, there's definitely cause for concern. They went and spent a lot of money on the bullpen this year. Craig Kimbrell shouldn't pitch again this year. That guy is terrible.
I'd rather see Corey Clemens try and close another game at this point.
Yeah, so I heard a stat that was Roger Clemens had never pitched in back-to-back games, and Corey Clemens now has, because they brought him in twice versus the Dodgers last week when they got smoked.
You know, the Phillies gave up in 3 games to the Dodgers, like almost as many runs as the Sixers had first half points in game 2 against the Celtics.
Oh my gosh. Oh, just terrible out west there. And then the first couple games versus Boston too that they lost. It's just not good baseball. I think the bullpen's to blame. Bats aren't alive. Starting pitching. It was a rough week last week, but they got time to turn it around. Pitching is going to be key.
We started this season saying you had 2 tough series in April to bookend the month with pennant caliber teams, and they barely escaped 500. Well, May's the exact opposite. You've got the Braves, Blue Jays, Dodgers, Boston, Diamondbacks who are playing well, which, by the way, good thing that's a home series because they cannot win out there in the desert. And again, for 2-3 games under 500, 8 already back in the division. Were our expectations too high a month ago?
They might have been. I mean, we were riding that high coming off the World Series. Things were clicking. We knew there were going to be a couple injuries going into the season. I thought they'd be better than 3 games below 500 right now. Definitely disappointed in the boys.
Who are you most disappointed by?
I mean, Kimbrell's a good one. No, who had Schwarber we know is hot and cold. Stott's been Turner. You know what, Trey Turner? I think he's a good player still, but he is a superstar. And he hasn't been playing at a superstar level yet.
Sub 250 batting average.
Ooh,
at home.
I didn't know that. Home. Yeah, I mean, they went and spent a lot of money, and he's got a lot of responsibility. So we need him to start swinging the bat.
I said earlier tonight, we'll spare no one, and that includes Rob Thompson, who I think has been bad this season. And as in tune as he seemed to be last year, the last part of last season, he seems equally out of sync this year. And I'll say this. He was like the cool, chill dad, ride with Philly Rob, and that worked. I don't know that the vibe's working right now, and I don't know that he's in control of the team with that demeanor. You know, they either lose by 3 to average teams because he hasn't prepared the starters for the new structure of the game, or he's getting blown out by the teams of the caliber he's supposed to be competitive with. And we had a listener write in a couple weeks ago, Michael was his name, asking why, as a fan base, we generally seem to give Rob such latitude while killing the other managers here. And I think that's going to be over soon. You're not the interim manager anymore. It's not the honeymoon phase. You take the team with the payroll that it has, as you said, and you have them nearly 10 games out in May. That's not acceptable. And then he sleepwalks through post-game interviews saying he's not, we're coming around. I'm not going to change the lineup. And it's like, does he know these games are televised?
Right. Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I think I still am in the honeymoon phase. I think I'm still like,
I'm out.
He doesn't have a full season under his belt yet. And he brought this team to the World Series. You're spot on though. It's very clear that this team was not ready for the new pitching rules. The starting pitching has been absolutely terrible. And that starts you got to point the finger at the head coach there, the manager.
I agree.
That's one problem.
And by the way, the coaching inconsistencies extend way beyond the Rob Thompson conversation. Nick Pivetta left the organization, went to Boston. became a reliable starting pitcher, immediately trashed the Phillies coaching and development staff. Zach Eflin couldn't pitch a clean inning here for 3 years, goes to Tampa, he looks like an all-star. And even Vince Velasquez, which leaves and suddenly then figures out a secondary pitch. There's too much evidence of talent leaving the organization, immediately then finding their way to ignore this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, with a couple of those guys, Pivetta, they were huge Pivetta fans. He hit all the stats on his rotations per second or whatever it is, and it never clicked here. Eflin, I think, is a little bit different story. He just battled that injury bug. There was always something with him. When he was healthy for a little bit, he seemed to be all right. But no, I'm definitely glad for both of those guys and Vinny as well. How about Vinny turning things around in Pittsburgh?
I think Dombrowski's generally done an okay job, but I'll say choosing Taijuan Walker, and again, he pitched decently yesterday in the final series against Boston, but choosing to sign Taijuan Walker and letting Zach Eflin walk certainly doesn't look like a good move right now. Craig Kimbrell looks like a disaster, and you gave away your best 2 bench players for a middling mid-tier reliever in Greg Soto, who has stabilized a bit, but nothing spectacular.
Yep, Soto has not been great. Kimbrell, terrible. I don't want to see him again. Can't throw him out. Taijuan Walker, I know, I heard such great things about him, and we saw him with the Mets last year. It looks off again this year. And there's the one common trait among all this is the new pitching rules. Like, why is Nola not great? Like, the entire pitching staff, somebody does need to be held accountable.
I agree. Well, Ranger Suarez is pitching now in Lehigh Valley. He threw 65 the other night. He's due in a couple weeks back. Do you think so? Who would you send back to the bullpen, Bailey Falter or Matt Strahm, when Ranger's ready to take back his spot?
I send Strahm back. I like Bailey Falter. Bailey, he's always going to eat up 4-5 innings for you every outing. He's tall, he's strong, he commands the ball well. I like Bailey Falter in the 5 spot. Ranger cannot get up here soon enough. Miss that dude.
I know you said you're still in on Thompson. I am too, generally, although I'm very unhappy with the first month of this season. And what happens if we're at the end of May and they're, say, 12, 13 games back? Where will we be then?
That's a good question, right? What if we were in the same spot? They fired Girardi. It was early June, right? June 1st or 2nd, I feel like.
I think it was, maybe. I thought it was a little later.
Maybe,
I could
maybe
buy
a week or 2 later.
Well, they're not firing. They're not firing Thompson.
No, but what if this team has more talent than last year? What if they have a worse record by the middle of June than they had with Girardi last year? It's a good question. You stick with Rob, but I'm just saying, hypothetically, there's an argument to be made for why you should sack your manager in mid-June if it's not working.
Yeah. You wonder how much. Bryce being back is great, right? He's been back for 6 games. They got annihilated in 3 of them, and they've lost 5 of 6. So you try and look for a positive, and there isn't one right now. For the payroll this team has, they should not be a 4th place team. No. It's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing.
It's great that Harper's back. They definitely need that bat. But it does make things a little bit more complicated in the field, which this team definitely is their weakness, just like last year. So if Bryce is DHing, you'll never DH for Schwarber or Castellanos. It's those guys will always have to play. You don't really have a first baseman. So I guess if your Bohm is over at first, Edmundo Sosa at third, it's the DH kind of does clog things up a little bit.
And Sosa's defense has fallen apart too. I think on our last episode, 3 of the 4 of us picked him as the best bench surprise.
Yep.
He looks terrible.
On the corner, he can't play. His third base isn't as good as his second and short. I think that's clear. He's a middle infielder trying to play third. I'm definitely disappointed with that as well. I thought he was going to be a stud no matter where you put him. That's not the case.
Let's try and inject some positivity into the conversation as we welcome in Abigail Miller and Jill Donahoe. And as they come in, Brian, we got an email question, which was, will the Sixers still be playing by the time Bryce Harper comes back? And this would have been a great question. Sorry we didn't get this posted in time, but what would you have said to that?
I would have said, no way the Sixers would still be playing. The second round exit versus Boston is what I would have thought, before the series started. And Bryce wasn't due to come back till July. And I know they kept saying he's on track, he's ahead of schedule. it's early May. What was the total day? It was like 166 days
Well,
after
they
he
never
started
put him. Yeah, they never put him on that injured list to start
on
the
the
season.
60
It's
day
unbelievable. 60
IL.
day. Yeah.
Just incredible. That guy is a freak of nature. He's just, yeah.
Abigail, we got more comments on your segment last episode than any other, with Ryan suggesting we had Wrigley Field to the list of the most aesthetically pleasing fields. And another writer, Chris, who wrote in about St. Louis, the Arch. Your thoughts?
I will say Wrigley Field, I have been there, shockingly, and I thought it was beautiful, historic. I loved it. It's a fun city, so I like that suggestion. Thanks, Ryan. For what is it, Busch Stadium in St.
Yeah.
Louis. I haven't been there, but my sister's moving to St. Louis, so I'll add it to the list when I visit her next. So I'll look for those arches. But
Friend of the pod.
right.
Big
Well,
friend of
thanks for the comments. For the team here, what would you say is your biggest surprise so far this season?
I'll go first. So I mean, for me, it's Bryce Harper being back already. I mean, I know we just touched on it. Just there's no way I would have thought that he'd be back and playing the first week of May.
Jill?
So last episode, I said that Nick Castellanos would have a batting average of 305, and he currently has a 304. And he is number 2 in the league with doubles, and I said he'd be number 1. So, we're on track.
Philly baseball over there.
I may be more impressed with myself than surprised with Nick Castellanos, but surprised nonetheless.
There you go. Ab?
I think the Pirates this season, we have McCutchen back, and I think he's really turning us around. So I think we're on a losing streak, but nonetheless, we are doing much better than in years past. So hopefully it's a good season for us.
The Pirates have to be the talking point of MLB right now. I mean, they're on a 7-game losing streak right now, unfortunately, but they're still in first place in their division.
It's unbelievable. It's
Over
unbelievable.
the Brewers by a game. I mean, we kind of knew that they'd come back down to earth, but still, what a couple months there for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Well, we were just talking about former Philly Vince Velasquez, who sort of resurged his career in Pittsburgh of all places. So
Any comments on that, Brian?
In what sense?
Just on Vince Velasquez?
Oh.
Any stories?
Jill and I do have a Vince Velasquez story, but we'll have to do a happy hour edition of the podcast, a 2-drink minimum, and we'll share that story at a later time. I'd say though, I was going to say Pittsburgh too, but honestly, I think Tampa. And if anyone doesn't know, Tampa went something like 15-0 at home to start the season, which is like an utterly historic record. And it frankly shouldn't be a surprise at this point because they seem to do it almost every year with the payroll of a pizzeria. It's unbelievable how well they do. They just destroyed the Yankees this weekend. I think they're going to win the division again. I think there's something like 27-6. So if it wasn't for Tampa, I'd say Pittsburgh. I mean, certainly not the Phillies, unfortunately. All right, Ab, what do you have for us?
So this week, my question for you all is food related. What would you say is the most under and overrated ballpark food? Brian Block, you're up.
Overrated and underrated. Huh. All right. Okay. Underrated. This might be a little bit controversial. Underrated. I'm gonna say popcorn. I know. See, I know this one here. I'll tell you this though. I had maybe the best popcorn I've ever had in my entire life about 2 or 3 weeks ago at a stadium, and I don't like consume popcorn regularly. I'm not like a habitual popcorn eater. I don't buy it to have it at home. I don't seek it out otherwise. But this popcorn was so good that I've been thinking about it with frequency ever since. So yeah, good popcorn. Overrated hot dog. A lot of them stink. And I love hot dogs. A lot of them stink. A lot of people just go for the novelty of $1 dog night to see how many they can eat. There's so many good hot dogs, and so many of them are not found in stadiums that I'll say that.
My overrated, I'm torn on this because I do love them as a snack. but it's peanuts for me. It's just because of what you have to do with the shells afterwards.
Mm.
I love eating peanuts, but you know, you feel like an asshole just dumping the peanut shells on the ground. So what do you try to do? Do you put them in a different bag, a different? It's not a good snack for a stadium. Underrated. I'm gonna go with the soft pretzel. Love a soft pretzel. I know a lot of people they eat it just as a vessel for the mustard. Not a mustard guy.
But not a
It's in the
stupid soft pretzel.
cone.
Not like a stupid like the log soft pretzel.
Like the what?
Like the brick soft pretzel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think I have to go with overrated peanuts as well,
Mhm.
Brian.
Nice.
Like, one, I don't ever want to have to work that hard for my food.
Mhm.
I don't think that they're that good. They're messy. There's always like a weird substance just still on your hands. And then you are literally just leaving the trash on the ground. And I think that's it's not a good look. So definitely peanuts. Don't think I've ever had them in a ballpark, and I just frown upon people that do. I don't think I've been to enough ballparks to advise on what I think is an underrated food. But you know, if I'm at Citizens Bank Park, I really will stand in line for Chickies and Pete's fries and
Crab
cheese
fries.
sauce.
I knew you were
I
gonna
just
say
gotta
that.
go for crab fries.
Yep.
Love it.
Great
Do you
idea.
think they sell peanuts in stadiums because it's in the song?
Maybe? Do they sell Cracker Jacks?
Probably.
Cracker
Yeah, they
Jack
definitely
song.
They
do.
do.
Also overrated.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
had them recently, and the prize inside was actually like a QR code that you scan somewhere else, and like God knows what they're going to send you. So, I mean, you're not even getting the novelty bit of it anymore. So get rid of peanuts and Cracker Jacks.
Are you saying it's time to revamp the seventh inning stretch song?
Right.
Potentially.
We'll have to tackle this in a subsequent episode.
That might be something at that happy hour episode.
That's a great one for the happy hour episode. We'll drink, we'll tell our Vince Velasquez stories, we'll have snacks, we'll assess the snacks.
Yeah.
Write a song.
Right.
Shout
Write a
song.
song.
Shout
what
out to
about
the
you?
listeners too. If you think
Yes.
of a good song name that we should put for the seventh inning stretch instead of take me out to the ball game, let us know. We'll comment on the next week's episode.
Right.
Ab, do you have an answer for overrated, underrated?
I mean, I haven't been overrated peanuts. Yeah. I don't, or whatever they are. Crap. Yeah. No, thank you. Underrated. I don't know. I feel like I love fries or chicken fingers, but I feel like that's a staple when you're at a ballpark. Who knows? But I gotta check out this popcorn. I don't even think I knew they sold popcorn at ballparks. So I'm intrigued, Brian Block.
You won't regret it. Jill, you have a striking out story for us.
Yes. So this week on Striking Out, the segment where dates at the Diamond go wrong. All right, so here's the story. I went on a first date with this woman a couple weeks back. We met on Hinge. She hadn't been to an MLB game before, so I tried to show her a good time and brought her great seats behind the dugout. Okay. I typically don't like to let women pay for anything on the date. Very chivalrous. But she insisted on buying snacks at the game, given I paid for the seats. She tried to ask me a couple times how much the seats were, given how close they were to the field, but I told her to not worry. I was happy to treat. She told me she doesn't drink, which was fine, but that she'd hook up the food. She left for about an inning and came back with one hot dog and one Diet Coke, apparently for us to share. Do you think she actually intended for us to share this, or is she just sort of odd and maybe selfish? And on top of that, we met at the ballpark prior to the game, but afterwards she asked me for a ride home. So, interested to get everyone's opinions. Do we think, this couple has a better chance at a second date, or last episode's couple, which for those of us that don't remember can be just nicknamed the Pisser, as she peed herself. So we have the Pisser or the Cheapskate. So what do we think?
Cheapskate. Well, why don't you assess first? I'm still digesting. The term
Yeah.
hook up the food, is that your term, or did the emailer write that?
the emailer wrote hook up
Oh,
the
in
food.
quotes.
In quotes. Yes, it was in quotes.
Huh.
So I don't think a hot dog and a soda at a ballpark is hooking anything up. That being said, it was still probably like $25. So this is challenging because on one end, I think the guy, while really sweet, did go very over the top on a first date. Seats behind the dugout, that's a very generous first date. I don't know the financial situation of the girl on the date. So I'm not sure. I think it, regardless, returning back to those seats with one soda and one hot dog is just like out of the question. That just doesn't make sense. Maybe you just show up with 2 hot dogs and no drinks. Like, I don't know, but you're not going to share a hot dog with, like, eating a hot dog in and of
That's
itself.
weird. That's
There's
weird.
much on a first date, but then, to share that with someone, it doesn't seem right to me. So, I don't know, guys.
The fact that he included where the seats were, to me, like, that says he's annoyed, right? I mean, first of all,
He's definitely annoyed.
to write into this segment, there's got to be first of all, there's got to be a screw loose.
He's extremely annoyed.
Something's off to begin with. But the fact that he included where the seats were, to me, says he's pretty turned off by the food situation. So to answer your question, I think the pisser has a better chance of the second date.
I think I have to agree.
Yeah, I think I might
too,
too.
right?
Go ahead, Abigail.
I know. I think, yeah, there has to be some equality in that. If he treated her, she needs to give a little bit too. So I think can't be a cheapskate. You got to be a little generous and give that. So here for the pisser.
We're here for the pisser.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to one girl made a decision and one girl had an accident. So you just hope that accident doesn't happen a second time. You give the pisser one more shot, and if she gets absolutely hammered again, no good.
And by the way, I still would love if somehow this finds its way to the pisser, if the pisser could write in and get that side of the story.
Good luck with that, but that'd be great.
We can only hope. Okay, so Ab, you say pisser, I say pisser, Bri, you say pisser.
Yeah, I'm there
Jill,
too.
and
I
Jill,
like how you said one made an accident. That's funny.
The other girl
And one made a choice.
a
And
conscious choice. Yeah.
I think, give the pisser another go.
we're team pisser over here.
Yes, we are.
Okay. In honor of the NFL draft, I had wanted to do some sort of roundtable draft selection segment. But then something much juicier happened last week, which was based on a contract dispute. Comcast actually dropped the NFL Network channel during the draft, which is a pretty bold move. A lot of articles, news about this, lawsuits about it, consumer complaints from avid NFL Network watchers. And it got me thinking, what is one channel that, if it were to be removed from your cable package, you would cancel or otherwise lose your mind?
For me, it's definitely NBC Sports Philadelphia. Does that count? Is that fair?
It counts. It counts.
If that's, I feel like that's the only reason why we actually have cable, is to watch live sports. And we all know sports are headed towards more of like an a la carte, where you got the MLS on Apple TV Plus, and it's going to get to a point where the NBA is going to be on Hulu and NFL is going to be on Netflix, and you'll have to subscribe to all of them. At that point, then I will just cancel cable. But I couldn't live without NBC Sports Philadelphia, the Sixers, Flyers, and Phillies.
Same. That was mine. That was mine too. Jill?
Well, I do not care about any of the sports channels. So if Bravo were canceled, we'd have a big issue. And if there's a segment for Scandival down the road on this podcast, I'm your gal. I hope none of you understand that. So we'll talk later.
and I will be right behind her with that Scandival drama.
Thank you.
Bravo would be my probably number one choice, but also HGTV, because I need to know, how much what Americans want out of apartments abroad. That's what I need to know. I need to know if you're loving it or listing it, all of that stuff. So yeah, Bravo followed by HGTV, strong second.
Love it.
All right, 2 Bravos, I just said Comcast Sportsnet. It hasn't been called Comcast Sportsnet in like 10 years.
Yeah.
NBC Sports Philadelphia. So I've been racking my brain for the last 25 minutes to try and figure out how we could introduce whatever the hell is going on with Al Horford's goofy sister into this episode tonight. And I can't figure out a way to do it. In a creative manner.
Their relationship is I thought it was his wife for the first like 3 years. Anna Horford, I think it is, right? She's on Twitter.
She's a lunatic. She's a lunatic.
Don't at her on Twitter. She will go off.
For those who don't know, can you give a quick synopsis of what's happening?
Al Horford is a current Boston Celtics player who, by the way, has catapulted past any of my least favorite athletes in any other sport to number 1. I hate him and I can't help myself. And it's disturbing, it's deranged, and I admit it. He has a sister. So first of all, Al Horford is a Sixer killer. He seems to never miss a shot. He played for the Sixers a few years ago and was terrible.
So
like
bad.
Phenomenally terrible.
He was Joel Embiid's kryptonite. And he was the only guy that could stop Joel Embiid. So the Sixers went and got him so he didn't have to play against them. And then when he was on our team, he was absolutely terrible. Carried on, he's back at Boston and back to killing Embiid again.
There's a non-insignificant portion of people who, and he was on the Celtics before then. It was Celtics, great. Sixers, horrendous. Celtics, again, killing us now. There's a non-insignificant number of people who think that he was somehow sent here to be like a sleeper cell agent to spy, like
a mole.
He's basically a mole. But the point of this is he has a sister, and again, many people think it's his wife because I'll let Brian explain in a second, who despises Philadelphia and is like unbelievably active on Twitter and pulls no punches. She ats, she retweets, she's vile, she's vicious, and I hate that family.
Yeah, wow, that was pretty much it. That was spot on. I mean, she actively goes against Philadelphia fans on Twitter. I mean, and she doesn't hold back, which good for her. But I think a lot of the time it's actually unwarranted, in my opinion.
Oh, the point is she provokes it all. She provokes it all and then runs around to like various media outlets, including, she's a good following too. She has like a 6-figure following to complain about like how we're the worst people on planet Earth. And, anyway, obviously with this series going on, she's been completely unhinged, as am I right now. Couldn't not mention it though.
I never thought we'd be talking about Anna Horford on this podcast.
Her follower count's just going up.
That's right. And frankly, if she wants to come on the podcast too, God bless her.
God bless us.
I'm sure she'd love to after this conversation, guys.
We'll tweet this at her later. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you have any comments for Jill, for Ab, for Brian, myself, please leave them on the YouTube page. We'll get to them next week. We'll be back with you again in a couple weeks. Hopefully the Phillies will be done flirting with mediocrity, because I think we're all done with it as well. Hopefully we'll have some follow-up on the dating stories. We'll get your takes on the most overrated, underrated foods. We'll be back with our Drunk Happy Hour podcast, in which all will be revealed. Any other questions you want to answer, to leave it on the page. And thanks again. Anybody else? Last minute words?
No, I think you said it all. Thank you so much, guys. Love you. Bye.
Bye.